The stars above Gray Line were cold and silent. It was a small frozen moon, never meant to be important. No cities, no weapons, no riches, just snow, rock, and sky. But now, it was the last stand of the human race. Every other world had fallen. Earth was far behind enemy lines. The colonies were destroyed. Millions were gone. The enemy had come fast like fire in the night. Humanity fought hard, but they were too late, too few. Now only Gray Line remained. And even here, there were only a few thousand soldiers left, tired, hungry, and out of hope. Captain Raynor stood at the edge of the trench, staring at the horizon. The sky was dark blue, almost black, and the wind screamed across the ice. He could see nothing yet, but he felt it. The enemy was coming, they always did. Every time a human planet fell, it started with silence. Then came the ships, the machines, the marching soldiers with no faces and no fear. Raynor had seen it before. He had lost friends, family, even his own brother. Now he had nothing left, nothing but the line. Behind him, his soldiers worked quietly. They built what little defenses they could. Ice walls, buried mines, heat wires to melt the snow and trap the enemy. There were no reinforcements coming. No supply ships. The last message from command had been 3 weeks ago. After that, silence. Raynor knew what it meant. Earth was gone. The enemy had won. But he also knew something else. Gray Line was the end. The final place where humanity would rise or fall. And he would not run. Private Lena worked beside a broken turret, trying to fix it with frozen fingers. She had only been a mechanic before the war. Now she was a soldier. She had never fired a weapon before Gray Line. Now she had killed 15. She didn't feel proud. She didn't feel anything, just cold, just tired. But still she worked, like everyone else, because here, on this empty moon, something strange had happened. People who had never met before stood side by side, ready to die for each other. Not for medals, not for glory, but because they were the last. In the command bunker, the remaining officers argued. "We should retreat to the caves," one said. "At least we could survive longer there." Another shook his head. "There's nowhere left to go. The caves won't stop the bombs." Raynor listened and then spoke, calm but firm. "We are not going to run. If we fall back, they break through. If they break through, they spread. And if they spread, it's over for everyone else hiding out there. We are the wall, and the wall holds." No one replied. They just nodded. They all knew the truth. There were other humans still alive, hidden on ships, on distant rocks. Survivors. If Gray Line fell, the enemy would find the rest. But if Gray Line made them bleed, made them fear, maybe, just maybe, they would pause. Maybe someone somewhere would have time to fight back. That was the hope. It was a small hope. But it was something. That night the stars lit up. One by one, glowing shapes appeared in the sky. The enemy fleet had arrived. Hundreds of ships, dark, silent, floating like shadows. They didn't send a message. They never did. They thought they didn't need to. Gray Line was small, weak, broken. The enemy didn't see a battle. They saw a cleanup. But humans were strange. They didn't break the way others did. In fact, the more they lost, the harder they fought. Fear turned to fire, pain turned to power. And now, with nothing left, the soldiers of Gray Line did something even the enemy couldn't understand. They stood. Raynor walked down the trench, nodding to each soldier. No big speech, just quiet strength. When he passed Lena, he paused. "That turret working?" She gave a tired smile. "Almost." He nodded again. "Good, we'll need it." The ground began to shake. The enemy was landing. Massive ships like black mountains dropped into the snow. The ice cracked. The air grew thick. Soldiers with glowing armor stepped out, weapons humming. Machines rolled forward, heavy and cold. The enemy outnumbered the humans 20-1. Their weapons were stronger. Their armor was better. They had every advantage, except one. They didn't understand what it meant to stand on a line, knowing it was a grave, and choose to stay anyway. Raynor raised his rifle. Ready weapons, he said. His voice was calm, strong, final. Lena finished the turret. It's ready, she whispered. The first enemy soldier stepped forward, and Greyline opened fire. The last front had begun. The alien ship hovered above. Greyline, silent and massive. Its black surface shimmered with heat as it blocked the stars. Inside, General Vakar stood tall, his 6 eyes scanning the frozen world below. Around him, other officers watched the screens, their sharp fingers tapping commands, their mouths twisted in smiles. One of them laughed softly. Only a few thousand humans? This isn't war. This is cleanup. Vakar didn't laugh. He didn't need to. He had crushed 5 human colonies already. His forces were strong, fast, and deadly. He had never lost. And now he had come to wipe out the last human base. He stared at Greyline with cold interest. They are weak, he said. But let us study them before we crush them. The alien scanners zoomed in on the trenches. Humans moved like ants. Their weapons were old, their armor thin. Some were repairing broken machines. Others stood still, rifles in hand, faces hard. Vakar narrowed his eyes. Something didn't fit. Why are they not retreating? He asked. Why do they wait? No one had an answer. Down below, the cold wind screamed again. Captain Raynor looked up at the sky. The enemy ship had arrived, larger than any he had seen before. Its presence made the air feel heavier, but no fear showed on his face. He had seen too much, lost too much. Fear was no longer useful. He only had duty now. Private Lena sat beside her fixed turret, rechecking the power cells. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from cold and exhaustion. Across from her, Sergeant Keller lit a small flame to warm his hands. He was an old soldier, his face scarred, one eye gone. They're watching us, he said quietly. They always do. They want to study us before the kill. Raynor nodded. Let them watch. In the enemy command room, Vakar's second-in-command pointed to the screens. They are reinforcing weak points, moving in teams, even using terrain to hide traps. He sounded confused. They fight like they still believe they can win. Vakar finally turned away from the screen. Fools. That belief will kill them. But still, something itched in his mind. A small feeling, not fear, but unease. He had crushed many races before. Some begged, some ran, some surrendered. But humans, they stood in place. He gave the order. Send the first wave. Ground units only. Let's see how they bleed. Within minutes, the first enemy dropships broke through the clouds. They looked like black daggers falling from the sky. Each one carried 200 armored soldiers. They landed far from the trenches, then marched forward in perfect lines. No fear, no emotion, just command. Raynor watched through binoculars. They're testing us, he said. They don't want to win yet. They want to see how hard we fight. Sergeant Keller spat on the ice. Then let's make it hurt. The soldiers of Greyline moved fast. Mines were armed, trip lines set, trenches locked. The cold air filled with the sound of weapons charging and boots crunching over snow. Raynor climbed onto the front line. Hold until they're close, don't waste ammo, make every shot count. The alien soldiers moved closer, still in perfect lines, still silent. They didn't see the hidden charges. They didn't expect humans to wait this long. At 200 meters, Lena flipped a switch. The first mine exploded, sending ice and metal into the air. 3 enemy soldiers went down, then another, then more. Confusion spread across the alien line. Humans rose from the hay, trenches, and opened fire. Lasers, bullets, and homemade bombs lit up the snowfield. The aliens began to fall, their bodies twisting, their machines failing in the cold. But they still pushed forward. Raynor kept firing. Don't let them reach the wire. Lena's turret roared to life, cutting through enemy armor like paper. The snow turned red again. Screams echoed across the ice. In the alien ship, Vakar's eyes narrowed. The human weapons were old but deadly. Their aim was precise, their traps clever. His soldiers were dying faster than expected. "Pull them back," he ordered. "Enough for now." The retreat order was sent, but not all alien soldiers made it back. The field was covered in black armor, broken machines, and frozen blood. Raynor didn't celebrate. He just reloaded his rifle and sat down beside the trench wall. Lena looked at him. "We made them run." "No," Raynor said. "We made them think. That's more dangerous." Up in orbit, Vakar stared at the battle report. Hundreds lost. Dozens of machines destroyed. Against what? A dying force? With broken gear and no backup? He didn't understand it. "They fight like they have something left to protect," one officer said. "No," Vakar replied. "They fight like they have nothing left to lose." And that, he realized, might be worse. The snow was quiet again. Cold winds moved across the battlefield, sweeping over broken machines and black armor. Smoke rose in thin lines. The first attack was over, but everyone knew it was not the last. The humans had won the first fight, but the enemy would come. Again, and next time they would come harder. Captain Raynor walked between the trenches. His boots crunched on frozen blood. He passed the bodies of both friend and foe. Some of the younger soldiers looked away, but Raynor didn't. He had seen too many bodies to look away now. Each one reminded him why they stood here, why they chose to stay. Private Lena sat on a small box, cleaning her rifle. Her face was pale, her fingers red from the cold. She had killed more in that last attack than she thought she. The snow was quiet again. Cold winds moved across the battlefield, sweeping over broken machines and black armor. Smoke rose in thin lines. The first attack was over, but everyone knew it was not the last. The humans had won the first fight, but the enemy would come again, and next time they would come harder. Captain Raynor walked between the trenches. His boots crunched on frozen blood. He passed the bodies of both friend and foe. Some of the younger soldiers looked away, but Raynor didn't. He had seen too many bodies to look away now. Each one reminded him why they stood here, why they chose to stay. Private Lena sat on a small box, cleaning her rifle. Her face was pale, her fingers red from the cold. She had killed more in that last attack than she thought she ever would. Her hands shook slightly, but she didn't stop working. Nearby, Sergeant Keller limped across the ice, shouting orders. "Reinforce the west side, replace the mines, and someone fix that damn heat wire. It's freezing out here." Raynor stopped. Beside him. "How bad is it?" Keller sighed. "We lost 30, maybe more. Turret 6 is gone, and our fuel cells are down to 30%. Raynor didn't flinch. "They'll be back soon, this time with better troops." Keller nodded. "Then we hit them harder." Above the moon in the massive alien ship, General Vakar watched, silently. The humans had surprised him. Their weapons were old, their numbers small, but their will was strong. He had lost more soldiers in 1 hour than he had in the last 5 campaigns. His officers waited for orders, but Vakar said nothing. For a long time, finally he spoke. "Send the second wave. Elites only. No machines. I want to see how they fight hand to hand." As the new alien ships dropped toward Gray Line, the sky turned red from the engine heat. Raynor looked up and felt the ground shake beneath him. "They're not testing us this time," he said. "They're here to break us." Sirens screamed across the trench lines. Soldiers ran to their positions. Rifles clicked. Turrets turned. The air grew thick with tension. Lena climbed into her position behind the repaired turret. She looked through the scope and saw them. Alien soldiers, taller than before, faster, carrying long energy blades and heavy rifles. They didn't walk, they charged. The humans opened fire. The snow exploded with light and sound. Laser blasts lit the air. The elite aliens moved quickly, dodging bullets, using their blades to deflect fire. They hit the human lines hard. Some made it into the trenches. Sergeant Keller was one of the first to fight them hand to hand. He pulled out his old shotgun and fired at close range, blasting one alien off its feet. Another lunged at him, swinging its glowing blade. But Keller ducked and stabbed it with a trench knife. He screamed with fury as he fought, blood on his face, refusing to fall. Lena kept her turret spinning, holding back the charge on the right side. She aimed fast and true, the barrel glowing hot. 2 enemy elites fell under her fire, then a third. Her fingers burned on the controls, but she didn't stop. Not even when a piece of shrapnel cut her cheek. Raynor fought with calm focus. He moved through the trench with his rifle, shooting with deadly precision. When an enemy dropped into the trench beside him, he turned and fired point blank. The alien dropped, its weapon clattering to the ice. Raynor reloaded and kept going. The humans refused to break. After 20 minutes of brutal fighting, the enemy began to fall back. Their elite force, trained and armed for fast victory, had failed. Half of them were dead. The others retreated, wounded and shocked. The battlefield went quiet again. Blood steamed on the snow. Bodies lay everywhere, human and alien alike. The smell of fire and metal filled the air. Soldiers sat where they stood, too tired to move. Some cried, some laughed, some just stared. Raynor leaned against the trench wall, breathing hard. Keller walked over, wiping blood from his mouth. "That was the second wave," he said. "You think they've had enough?" Raynor looked toward the dark sky. Not even close. In the alien command ship, Vakar slammed his hand against the screen. He had sent his best, and they had failed. "They are dying," he growled. "Why do they still fight?" No one answered. One of the alien officers looked at the report and whispered, "They are not fighting to win. They are fighting to make us bleed." Vakar stared at Greyline. The moon was now more than a battlefield. It was a symbol, and that made it dangerous. The sky above Greyline was black. No stars, no moonlight, just darkness. The enemy ships had blocked the sky, turning night into something heavier. The humans called it the Long Midnight. It had now lasted for 23 hours. Captain Raynor stood on the command tower, wrapped in a heavy coat. His face was hard, his eyes focused. The trench lines below him looked like veins of fire. Dim lights, heat wires, and soldiers moving quietly through the snow. They were tired, all of them. But no one asked to leave. No one walked away. Private Lena sat beside her turret, her hands bandaged, her cheeks still bleeding. She hadn't slept in 2 days. Her eyes burned, her back ached, but she stayed at her post, just like everyone else. Sergeant Keller leaned against a wall, coughing into his arm. Blood. He wiped it away and kept working. "Raynor," he said, over the comms. "They're gathering again, 3 miles out, big numbers, looks like armor this time." "Walkers," Raynor's voice was calm. "Estimated time? Maybe an hour, maybe less." Raynor turned toward the trench lines and spoke into the command channel. "This is it. They're sending in the big ones, tanks, mechs, everything they've got. We won't outrun them, we won't outgun them, but we will outlast them. We hold this line until the last man, until the last breath." Across Greyline, soldiers prepared in silence. They loaded ammo, armed explosives, and took final positions. Some wrote quick letters. Others whispered quiet prayers. A few looked up at the black sky and smiled. This wasn't fear anymore. It was defiance. The enemy came like thunder. Metal giants marched across the snow, crushing everything in their path. Huge mechanical walkers with long legs, plasma cannons, and armor thick as steel walls. Behind them, alien soldiers ran in waves, weapons glowing in the dark. It looked like a storm made of fire and metal. Raynor stood at the front. He raised a flare gun, aimed it at the sky, and fired. The flare screamed upward and exploded into red light. "Now!" he shouted. The trenches lit up. Turrets fired. Rockets screamed. Mines exploded beneath enemy machines, tearing off legs and flipping tanks into the air. The first wave hit hard, but the humans were ready. Lena fired her turret until the barrel glowed white. She didn't stop. Every time an enemy came close, she pushed harder. Around her, others did the same. Soldiers used grenades, rifles, even their fists. There was no retreat. Not an inch. Sergeant Keller climbed onto a broken wall with a heavy launcher. "Come on, you bastards," he shouted, firing straight into a mech's face. The explosion tore it apart. He laughed. then dropped to reload. Rayner moved through the chaos like a shadow. He gave orders, dragged wounded soldiers to safety, picked up rifles from the dead, and kept shooting. He was everywhere, fearless, unshakable. The enemy began to break through on the western line. Rayner saw it and called for backup, but there was no backup left. Only 5 soldiers were still standing there, and the enemy was coming fast. So Rayner ran. He crossed the trench alone, firing at full speed. He leapt into the collapsing west line and landed beside the last 5. They fought together, 6 humans, dozens of enemies. Explosions rocked the trench. 2 of the humans went down. Rayner kept shooting. He climbed onto the edge and dropped a plasma charge into a walker's cockpit. It exploded like a sun. The enemy began to pull back. The midnight attack had failed, again. The battlefield was smoke and blood. The ice was cracked, the sky still black. But the line had held, just barely. Rayner sat down beside a wall, breathing, heavy. His coat was torn, his left hand burned, but he was alive. So were Lena, Keller, and a few dozen others. That was enough. Lena limped over and dropped beside him. "That's 3 waves," she said. "How many more?" Rayner didn't answer. He looked up at the sky. In the enemy command ship, General Vakar stared at the report. Again his forces had failed. Again the humans held. Even after hours of fighting. Even when they should have broken. Even in the dark. One of his officers said quietly, "They do not win with strength. They win with will." Vakar's voice was cold. "Prepare the final wave. Burn the trenches. Wipe them from the ice." "But sir," the officer replied, "they won't surrender." Vakar looked down at Greyline. "Then let them die standing." But even he was starting to wonder, how do you kill something that refuses to fall? The sun hadn't risen in days, not that it mattered. Greyline's sky was still black, covered by enemy ships. The world was frozen, silent, broken, but the line still stood. Inside the trench, Captain Rayner leaned over a small table, staring at a map made from blood-stained paper. Every inch of the front was marked in red. Almost every team had taken heavy losses. The enemy kept coming. Bigger, smarter, faster. But the humans refused to fall. "We're not soldiers anymore," Rayner whispered. "We're the wall." Private. Lena sat nearby, wrapping a new bandage over Keller's shoulder. The old sergeant had taken shrapnel during the night attack. He refused to go to the med tent. "I can still shoot," he growled. "That means I stay." Lena didn't argue. None of them did anymore. Everyone who was still breathing had made a choice: die on this ice, or stand until the last second. Radio static crackled in Rayner's ear. A message came through, alien voices, twisted and cold, speaking in a dozen tongues. He didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. Surrender. He turned off the radio. "They're still trying to talk?" Keller asked. Rayner nodded. "They want us to quit." Lena looked toward the ruined battlefield. "Then they still don't understand us." High above, in the alien command ship, General Vakar stood silent. The latest attack had failed, again. Mechs destroyed, soldiers dead, and not a single inch of ground taken. His officers begged him to bombard the planet from orbit. "Wipe it clean," one of them said. "No survivors." Vakar shook his head. "No, that would give them the honor of dying fast. I want them broken, not just dead." He turned to a tech officer. "Block their comms. No calls out, no messages. Let them feel alone." The signal was cut. Back on Greyline, Rayner tried to call high command. Nothing. Just silence. He turned to the team. "We've been cut off." Keller raised an eyebrow. "So, no backup?" Rayner looked at him. There was never going to be backup. A cold silence followed. Then Lena stood. Her voice was calm. "Then we fight alone." The soldiers of Greyline prepared once again. They fixed weapons with melted parts. They set new mines using leftover fuel cells. They painted messages on the trench walls. Words like "not one step back, still breathing, and make them bleed." Every message was a warning. Every word was a promise. The next attack came at dusk. Not that it looked different. The sky was still black, but this time, the enemy sent everything. Walkers, flyers, drones, infantry, a full burn. The humans waited in silence. Then the first shot was fired. A drone exploded in midair. One of Lena's traps. Then the turrets. Lit up. Rifles fired. Rockets launched. The battlefield turned into hell again. Raynor fought on the front line, firing nonstop. His left arm had stopped working, frozen from a near hit. But he didn't slow down. Keller used one hand to fire his pistol, the other to throw grenades. Even wounded, he wouldn't fall back. Lena stayed by the turret, holding the right flank. With brutal fire, enemy after enemy fell into the snow. Machines burned, bodies piled up. The air was thick with smoke and screams. Then the trench wall cracked. A giant walker crashed through the center line, its legs crushing bunkers. It roared, its cannon charging. Soldiers screamed. Some ran. Some froze. Raynor ran straight toward it. He carried the last anti-tank charge. He dodged fire, climbed over a broken wall, and leapt onto the walker's leg. The machine shook, trying to throw him off. Raynor climbed higher, reached the core, and slammed the charge into the reactor. He whispered, "No retreat," and jumped off. The walker exploded like a star. The shockwave knocked Raynor into the snow. His ears rang, his body burned, but he got up. He always got up. The enemy, once so sure of victory, began to falter. For every meter they gained, they lost hundreds. And the humans? They never gave up ground, not one step. In the alien ship, General Vakar finally spoke. They have no orders, no support, no escape, and still, they fight. His voice shook for the first time, not with fear, but with respect. They are not defending a trench, he said. They are defending a belief. He turned to his officers. They will die, but not today. Raynor looked at the ruins of the field. Smoke drifted over the snow. Bodies lay still. The sky was dark, but the line had held, and there was no retreat, no reply. Just one promise left. We're still here. The battlefield was quiet, too quiet. Captain Raynor stood in the center of what was once a trench, now a shattered line of broken walls and frozen bodies. The snow around him was black with ash and blood. The ground was cracked. Heat wires sparked. Almost every turret was silent. Only smoke moved. The last battle had ended hours ago. But no one could rest. Private Lena limped through the ruins, stepping over craters and bodies. She held her rifle close, even though the barrel was warped. Her eyes were tired, her face pale. Her voice cracked when she spoke, but she still spoke. How many did we lose? Sergeant Keller didn't look at her. He was sitting against a wall, holding a blood-soaked bandage to his stomach. Too many. Maybe half. Maybe more. Raynor walked toward them slowly. His coat was torn. One arm was burned, but he still stood. "Do you?" "We can't afford to count the dead," he said quietly. "Not yet." Lena looked around. "Is this still a trench, or just a grave?" No one answered. High above, in the alien command ship, General Vakar watched the aftermath. Humans had held the line again. His strongest wave had failed. Even his elites had fallen. What remained of his army stood in silence, afraid to move forward. Vakar's officers looked at him, waiting for orders. He said nothing. They all felt it now. Something strange. The humans had no air support, no supplies, no escape. But they still fought, and somehow they kept winning, not with strength, not with numbers, but with something else. Raynor stood at the edge of the trench and looked up at the black sky. "They'll come again," he said. Lena nodded. "And we'll fight again." Keller coughed hard, spitting blood into the snow. "We can't keep this up." Raynor turned to him. "No, but we're not done yet." A small alert beeped on the comms panel. Wasn't a message from command. It was just static. But someone on the other end was still trying. Someone out there hadn't forgotten them. That was enough. Rayner opened the local channel. His voice went out across the trench. "This is Captain Rayner. If you're still alive, if you can still move, you're still in this fight. We don't hold the line because we're told to. We hold it because no one else will. This is our place, and they will not take it." All across the ruined trench, soldiers slowly stood up, wounded, tired, hungry, but still standing. A medic dragged a bandaged soldier back to cover. 2 engineers began fixing a broken turret. A sniper climbed onto a tower that barely stood, reloading, her rifle with shaky hands. Even when everything was broken, the will to fight remained. Keller grinned weakly. "You always did know how to give a speech." Rayner gave a small smile. "Let's make sure it wasn't our last." Then from the north edge of the trench came a deep rumble. A scouting drone raced over the horizon, trailing smoke. Behind it, enemy movement. Hundreds of them. A new force, fresh, fast, silent. Rayner's smile faded. Lena raised her rifle. "They're coming again." Keller stood, gripping the wall to stay upright. "Then let them come." The humans took their positions one more time. No reinforcements. No reinforcements were ever coming. But they didn't need more soldiers. They needed belief, and they still had that. The enemy moved in fast, squads of sharp-armored units using new tactics, shifting from cover to cover. They had learned. They were adapting, but so had the humans. Rayner used broken tunnels to flank them. Lena and a new recruit set traps using frozen fuel cores. Keller crawled up onto a wrecked walker and used it as a sniper nest. The battle was brutal, short range, close combat, less shouting, more breathing. The snow turned red again. One alien broke through the line and raised its blade above Lena, but a boy no older than 18 jumped on its back and stabbed it with a wrench, not a weapon. A wrench. Another soldier ran out of ammo and used a shovel. The enemy began to fall back, not because of fear, but because they couldn't understand. They didn't understand why the humans didn't quit, why they didn't run, why they kept fighting. Even when they had nothing left. Vakar saw it too. He turned to his officers and said in a low voice, "They are not defending land. They are not defending a trench. They are defending each other." And deep inside him, a question grew. What if we've already lost? After the battle, Rayner sat beside a fire made from broken rifles. He looked at the faces around him, some burned, some bruised, all still breathing. Lena whispered, "Why are we still alive?" Rayner looked toward the dark sky, "Because we chose to be." The sky had not changed. It was still black, cold, heavy. But something had changed in the hearts of those who stood in the trench. Captain Rayner looked over what was left of Grey Line. There were no walls now, just broken steel, frozen mud, and the smoke of 1,000 fires. Only 38 soldiers still stood. No more ammo drops, no fresh power cells, nothing left but scraps, memories, and will. And still, they refused to fall back. Rayner's hands were shaking as he held his rifle, not from fear, not from the cold, but from knowing this would be the last time. Private Lena was nearby, strapping a broken knife to her arm. She had no more bullets. She didn't ask for any. Sergeant Keller sat on the ground, too weak to stand. His bandages were soaked through. He knew he couldn't fight, but he looked every soldier in the eye and said, "Just one thing. Make it cost them everything." In the skies above, General Vakar gave the final order. Send everything. No more limits. No more strategies. Burn the trench. End this. His officers hesitated. "They have nothing left," one whispered. "They're already defeated." Vakar stared at the dark screen. "No," he replied. "They've already won, because we fear them, and they do not fear us." Thousands of enemy units descended onto the battlefield, heavy tanks, plasma mechs, drones, wave after wave. Rayner looked at his team and spoke calmly, as if he were giving the weather report. "They're coming. All of them. This is it." Lena nodded. "Then let's give them something to remember." No one ran. The soldiers of Grey Line stood in the open. No walls, no cover, no backup, only courage. Rayner reached into his coat and pulled out an old, cracked data chip. It had a simple message recorded on it. Just a few words. He plugged it into a transmitter and pressed send. The signal burst into space, barely strong enough to reach orbit. It said, "We are the last line. We won't hold forever, but if you hear this, remember us." Then the enemy arrived. The ground shook, the air screamed, the sky burned red, and the final battle began. Rayner charged first. His rifle fired 3 shots before it jammed, so he threw it and pulled a blade. He slashed into the first enemy that came close. Another tackled him. He fought it off with blood in his eyes. Lena jumped onto a mech's back, stabbing wires and tearing out cables. She rode it until it exploded beneath her. The young recruits fought like monsters, shouting, screaming, crying, but never giving. Even Keller, bleeding out, managed to crawl to a detonator and blow a walker apart with one final push. The trench, no, the field, was fire and metal. For every human that fell, 3 enemies dropped. But it wasn't enough. The line was breaking. Rayner was on one knee, his vision blurred when he saw Lena fall. She'd taken a plasma shot to the chest. She lay still. He tried to reach her, but another wave of enemies rushed in. So he stood again, bloodied, burned, and roared into the sky. If this is the end, then let them remember how it felt to face us. He charged. Alone, above, in the cold. Stars, a small scout ship, picked up the weak message from the surface, a distress signal. The AI inside replayed it, translated it, and then forwarded it across secure channels. Within minutes, it reached Earth Command. Within 1 hour, the Death Fleet moved, but it was too late for Grey Line. When the reinforcements arrived, they found only wreckage. The trench was gone. But so was the enemy. Both sides had burned together in the snow. They found a broken flag jammed into the ground, human-made, still standing. On it, scribbled in blood and ash, were 4 words: "We held the line." Years later, children would learn their names, the 38 who stood, the soldiers of Grey Line. And when they asked why no one surrendered, the answer was always the same. Because they weren't just defending a place, they were becoming a legend. End of series.